Hi everyone, welcome to our consent culture video. In this video, we'll be talking a little bit about what consent is, what it looks like, and how you can contribute to a consent culture. Before we begin, we wanted to ask our audience, when you hear the word consent, what do you immediately think of? Do you think of legal documents? Do you think of tea? You've probably heard about it at school. You might have heard it from friends, family members, or even coworkers talk about consent. Oftentimes, consent is brought up with topics like sexual assault, sexual harassment, or even rape. In this video, we'll be talking a little bit about what consent is, what it looks and sounds like, when it can and cannot happen, and some warning signs to look out for when giving consent. By teaching you a thing or two about consent, hopefully you could teach others and help us promote a consent culture. With that said, what is consent and what does it look like? Consent and consent culture aren't exclusively all about sex or sexual activity. Consent is a form of permission that you give someone to do things that you want and are okay with to your personal space and body. Consent culture is a culture where asking and giving consent is normalized. It's often talked about, and it doesn't feel weird or awkward or embarrassing to ask for consent. In a consent culture, you and you alone have sole ownership over your space and body. You get to decide what is okay and not okay. You have the right to consent with a romantic partner, with a family member, with a friend, with a coworker, and especially a stranger. No one has entitlement to your body or your space, only you do. And absolutely no one has the right to force or impose their wants and desires on you or your body. At the same time, while you have ownership over your body and space, they have ownership over theirs as well, so no imposing your will on anyone else either. Know that consent isn't a promise. It doesn't mean the person you have given consent to has permission all the time to do whatever they want. You can change your mind, and consent can be revoked at any time you choose. It's okay to change your mind and say no after you've said yes. It's also okay to say no to some things and yes to others. Again, it's your body, you get to decide what you want to do with it. Though consent may be sexy to some, know that consent is first and foremost mandatory. Any kind of sexual activity or touching without consent is considered sexual assault and possibly even rape. With that said, what does consent look like? Consent is a very clear yes. Consent is capable, it's willing, it's enthusiastic, and it's repeated. It should be excited, and it should show the person or people that you're with that they also want to do whatever you want to do as well. What is not consent? For starters, if someone says no or stop at all, that is a clear indicator that they do not consent to anything you are saying or doing, and you should stop immediately. No means no, and only yes means yes. If the person isn't saying no, that doesn't mean they're saying yes. If you hear or see anything that remotely sounds like, I don't like that. Can we slow down? I'm not into this anymore. Can we just stop for a second? I guess if you want me to. I'm not ready for this. Please don't. Or if they are silent, that could possibly mean that they aren't consenting to what you want to do. Again, if a person isn't saying no, that doesn't mean they're saying yes. If you are ever unsure if someone is giving you consent or not, ask them. Some ways you can check in could be simple as, is this okay? Are you sure you want me to do this? Are you enjoying yourself? How does that feel? I can't really tell how you're feeling. Is everything okay? Don't be afraid to check in and really communicate with the person you're with before doing anything. Checking in and making sure that you and the other person are okay is a good sign of healthy and effective communication. Checking in and asking if the person is still consenting to whatever you are doing is not only a sign of healthy and effective communication, but it also keeps everyone on the same page. Times when consent cannot happen, even with a yes. These are situations where a person is unable to give consent, and engaging in any kind of unwanted touching or sexual activity during these circumstances can be considered sexual assault or even rape. For example, if someone is unconscious, maybe they're sleeping, taking a nap, or are passed out after being under the influence, either way, they cannot give consent. This doesn't mean take advantage of the situation, this means leave them alone or call for appropriate help. If someone is drunk or under the influence, consent cannot happen. If someone is too drunk to drive, they're too drunk to consent. Drugs and alcohol can really affect a person's capability to make reasonable and logical choices. This also affects their ability to consent. Again, this doesn't mean take advantage of the situation, it means be a good bystander and either leave the person alone or call for help. Another time when someone can't legally consent is when they are underage. Getting straight to the point, non-consensual touching or sexual activity engaged with a person under the age of 18 is considered unlawful sex with a minor under the law of certain states. Because the underage person is considered a minor, they aren't capable of giving formal consent to activities like sex. Here are some warning signs when it comes to giving consent. Consent has to come from the person's own free will. Some warning signs to look out for when it comes to giving consent would be if someone is trying to coerce or manipulate you into giving consent. This can come in the form of pestering or bothering you repeatedly to give consent, or using the effects of alcohol and other drugs to make you give consent. If someone is trying to intimidate or pressure you into giving consent, this can come in the form of verbal or physical threats, the use of violence, or even blackmailing you into giving consent. Or if anyone tries to bribe you into giving you consent, like giving you money or a particular reward. Remember that consent is capable and it's willing. No one has the right to force you into giving consent. Remember, consent is yours and yours only to give. You get to decide what happens to your space and your body. Especially in a sexual realm, sex isn't something that happens to someone. It happens together, with both or all parties actively and willingly participating. So today, we went over what consent and consent culture is, what consent looks and sounds like, when consent cannot happen, and some warning signs to look out for when giving consent. Now that you know a thing or two about consent, please practice it in your daily life. Share and teach your friends and loved ones so we all can contribute to a safer, happier, and more accepting consent culture. Thanks for watching! Bye!
To make those kind of moves that make it right, what have you got to lose?
Let's lay things down, clear and stable. This ain't no game, this ain't no fable.
This is a story about two individuals. Communications grew, there became a sort of ritual. One of them decided to change their mind.
And just to clarify, that's completely fine.
Cause no means no.
Yes,
no,
yes,
no.
yes, I get it now.
It works
only with your consent.